It was an especially cold December morning when Stuart got into his car's icy cabin. After starting the engine, he warmed it up a little and drove cautiously onto the nearly empty road. Stuart was on his way to a neighboring town to make a deal with a new supplier of auto parts for his store. Recently, he had been unlucky with suppliers, so he hoped that this time the negotiations would go well. Thankfully, Stuart was right this time. He was able to agree on shipments that were supposed to start from the new year. After shaking hands with his new partner, he went outside. Delighted with the successful deal, Stuart decided to stop by a store and buy a gift for his wife, Emily. He pulled up near a shopping center, walked among the many stores, and chose a beautiful watch for Emily with a gold-plated case from an expensive boutique. By the time Stuart left the city, it was already dark and heavy snow had started to fall. Visibility on the road was rapidly deteriorating, and even with the headlights on and the windshield wipers working, it was almost impossible to see anything in the distance. When Stuart drove onto an intersection, he only had time to notice something dark on the left with his peripheral vision. He started to brake, but it was already too late. A heavy logging truck that had jumped onto the highway easily knocked Stuart's car off the road, crushing the driver's side with its huge bumper. "Hey, how are you there? Are you alive?" Stuart struggled to open his eyes and saw through the broken glass the face of an unfamiliar man. The man immediately got busy, tried to open the door, but it didn't budge. Then he ran for a pry bar and with difficulty, but broke the battered door and picking Stuart up by the arms, dragged him outside. Stuart gathered his strength, turned his head, looked at his feet, and was horrified that his feet were completely crushed and left bloody tracks in the snow. His last strength left him, and Stuart lost consciousness. He woke up in the hospital. The first thing he did was try to move his toes, and realizing they were gone, moaned in pain and despair. A gray-haired doctor came into the ward, carefully examined his bandaged limbs, and seeing the patient suffering on his face, said, "Well, calm down, please. It's not as bad as it could have been. You lost a lot of blood, and it's just a miracle that you survived." Emily arrived in the evening, tears in her eyes, as she sat down next to him and took his hand in hers. Stuart looked at her and remembered buying her a watch at the store and groaned at his own foolishness. "I stopped by the store to buy you a watch. Why couldn't I have just stayed home?" he muttered. "Stuart, everything will be good, don't worry." His wife tried to reassure him, holding his hand tighter. "What's so good about this? Who needs me now?" Stuart said irritably. "Tell Graham to manage the store himself from now on," he added, turning to the wall. After being discharged, Emily suggested that Stuart live in his late grandfather's old house, outside the city, surrounded by nature. Stuart agreed, seeing it as a good idea. Emily packed her husband's things in a suitcase and one more time offered to hire a caregiver for Stuart, but he angrily refused. He got out of bed to show her that he could take care of himself, but a sharp pain in his lower back forced him back onto the bed. Gritting his teeth to keep from screaming in pain, he made another attempt and moved to his wheelchair, showing his wife that he didn't need anyone's help. With a proud look, he left the room. Everything in his grandfather's house was as simple as ever, but beautiful in its own way. Stuart gazed at his grandfather's portrait and suddenly remembered what he was like when he was alive. Although it had been 5 years since his passing, Stuart still vividly remembered his grandpa. He remembered his face, overgrown with stiff bristles, and his old crumpled work shirt, stained with gasoline and tobacco. He wore it all the time, taking it off only for washing. Grandfather died 5 years ago, but Stuart still missed him. These memories took him back to the distant past. He remembered the times when his mother was still alive, before she was diagnosed with cancer. Every morning she used to make him pancakes and carrot fritters, which he loved. It all felt so close now that Stuart completely withdrew into himself and sat in his wheelchair, hypnotized. Stuart, are you even listening to me? Emily called out to him. I might be leaving soon. Don't miss me too much. I'll be back. And call me if you need anything. Okay, Stuart nodded. Don't forget about me while you're gone. He joked, but his wife flinched at his words. How can you say that? Emily said, offended. Then she kissed her husband goodbye and left quietly. Stuart watched as the heavy door closed behind his wife, and at that moment it seemed to him that he had lost her for the last time. He instinctively jerked forward, but a sharp pain pierced his back, and he, groaning, wearily sank into his wheelchair. A month passed. At first, Emily called Stuart almost every day, inquiring about his health, offering help, but then her calls became less frequent and finally stopped altogether. Stuart, in a troubled foreboding, tried to reach Emily himself, but her phone did not answer. Stuart guessed that Emily had left him and decided to live her own life, so he soon gave up his attempts to contact her. Deep down, he understood his wife, because not everyone can find the strength to take on such a heavy burden as him, but resentment firmly settled in his heart and did not give him peace, neither day nor night. One evening, lost in troubled thoughts, Stuart suddenly heard the gate creak outside. He looked out the window, but it was already quite dark outside, and he didn't see anyone. Thinking that he had imagined it, he was about to immerse himself in his thoughts again, but then he clearly heard a knock on the door. It's open, come in, Stuart called out, wondering who could come to visit him at this time. The door opened and, to his surprise, Stuart saw his neighbor, Penelope, standing on the threshold. She was petite, slender, and modestly dressed. He looked her up and down and gestured for her to sit at the table. The girl walked timidly into the room and sat down opposite. Hi, Stuart, she said. I was passing by and saw the lights in the window, so I decided to stop by. How long have you been here? It's been a month. I just haven't left the house, Stuart said gloomily as he rolled out from behind the table, demonstrating his wheelchair. What happened to you? Penelope exclaimed concernedly. Stuart wearily waved his hand and told Penelope the story. He had barely finished when they heard a noise from outside, and then someone, drunk, started calling out for Penelope rudely. Is that your stepfather? Stuart asked. The girl sadly nodded and explained that her stepfather had been drinking heavily for a long time, almost lost his mind, and life with him at home had become unbearable for her. Penelope could have gone to the city to study, but without money it was impossible, and there was nowhere to earn money in the village. Shivering from the cold, Penelope approached the stove to warm her hands and turned to Stuart. Can I stay with you tonight? I'm scared to go back home. He'll definitely beat me. Stuart nodded and suggested that Penelope choose any place she felt comfortable. While wincing in pain, he approached the stove and removed a pot of potatoes from the burner. Seeing Stuart's anguish, Penelope took the pot from him and helped set the table. You need to see Mr. Khazard, she advised. People come from all over the region to see him. He'll fix your back right away. That sorcerer, Stuart laughed, recalling old Mr. Khazard living in the forest. He's a healer, Penelope corrected him sternly. Last summer I dislocated my leg and he fixed it so well that there wasn't even a trace left. Stuart waved his hand, promising to visit Mr. Khazard somehow, and suggested Penelope distract herself from the conversation and finally have dinner. A month passed. Penelope visited Stuart every day, helped with the household chores, chatted with him over a cup of tea, and once brought Mr. Khazard to his place. He immediately examined Stuart, running his fingers over his spine and pressing on one of the vertebrae so hard that Stuart almost passed out. Mr. Khazard told him to endure a little and repeated his manipulations several more times. Done, he said, patting Stuart gently on the back. It won't hurt you anymore. Stuart smiled incredulously, but within a few hours he realized that he really felt better. Within a couple of days, he could easily turn his torso, bend and straighten his back, and even while sitting in his wheelchair, he could do housework. He went out to the garden for the first time and put the plot in order, and didn't even feel tired. Returning to the house, he realized for the first time in months that there were pleasant moments in life. But before he could enjoy this new feeling, he was startled by the unexpected sound of the phone ringing. It was Martha, Emily's sister. She struggled to find the right words for a while, but eventually she gathered the courage to tell Stuart that Emily had decided to file for divorce. Stuart was stunned and didn't know what to say. It seemed to him that the remnants of his world had collapsed into an abyss, taking his hope with it. Why, he managed to say after a long silence. They're planning to get married, Martha said, embarrassed. Stuart felt like he couldn't breathe. He asked Martha to cool back, and after turning off his phone, threw it into the corner of the room. Slowly, he walked to his grandfather's old chest of drawers, opened the top drawer, and took out an antique straight razor with a beautiful bone handle. Stuart ran his finger along the blade to make sure it was still as sharp as it was years ago, and started to think. He imagined himself making just one thin cut and finally getting rid of the pain in his heart. Bitter thoughts, loneliness at night, and endless suffering. Someone knocked on the gate, and fast footsteps approached. Penelope appeared on the threshold with a large bundle in her hands. "Are you out of your mind, Stuart?" she shouted. "Don't even think about it," she cried, rushing towards him and snatching the razor from his hand. "Why? Why did you want to do that? Everything was so good. Are you kidding at me? You all say that, but in reality you pity me. What good is it to be without feet and not be able to live my life to the fullest?" He shouted and hit his stumps with all his might. Penelope froze in horror and helplessness, not knowing how to react. Then she suddenly came to her senses and unfolded the bundle she had brought with her. 2 prostheses and crutches fell out onto the floor. "This is what Aunt Helen asked you to deliver," stuttered Penelope, and kneeling down, she attached the prostheses to Stuart's legs. "These are left from her late husband." Penelope helped Stuart to stand up, handed him the crutches, and he, unsteadily, moving on his artificial legs, took a few steps. "Well done. See how great it is." Penelope rejoiced, tenderly observing every movement of Stuart. Stuart walked around the room, took a breather, and approached the girl. "Thank you. It's really not bad at all." He smiled and held Penelope close to him. The girl immediately hugged Stuart by the neck and kissed him. Regaining her senses, she recoiled in fear, but Stuart managed to grab her by the waist, pulled her close, and running his hand through her lush hair, brought the girl's face so close that their lips met again in a hot kiss. That night they spent together, for the first time as a couple. A week later, Stuart went to the city to divorce his wife and check on the business of the store. The divorce procedure went quickly, and Stuart, dryly saying goodbye to his ex-wife, quickly left the registry office. Emily tried to stop Stuart to ask for forgiveness, but he did not even look at her and walked past, tightly squeezing the crutches. Stuart called a taxi and went to the store. Entering inside, he looked around confusedly. The store was empty. There were some crumpled boxes and old, unsold parts lying on the dusty showcases. Stuart approached Graham, bent over the cash register, and hit the floor with a crutch with force. Graham looked up and recoiled in horror. "Stuart, if you're about Emily, then she..." He started speaking nervously. "I'm not interested in those details." Stuart interrupted him. "I came about the store. I see things are not going well." Graham collected all the bills and small coins in the cash register, put them in a bag, and handed them to Stuart. "We need to sell the store," he said. "There are no buyers, no profits, only expenses." It's not up to you to decide. This is my store, and I will decide what to do with it. And believe me, I can handle this problem. Stuart sharply replied and left the store without saying goodbye. Stuart was sorry for his business. He had put great effort into this store, but there was nowhere to take the money for investing in it. The only solution could be a loan from the bank, but he doubted that he would be approved. At home, he shared his doubts with Penelope, and the girl suddenly, as if remembering something, looked at him with wide open eyes, and then, asking him to wait a little, ran out onto the street towards her house. She returned in a few minutes and handed Stuart a large black key, clearly of antique workmanship, decorated with intricate carving. Your grandfather asked me shortly before his death to keep this key and give it to you. I often came to see him, and he always talked about you. He also asked to pass on this key is from the chest that is hidden in the basement. I don't even know what could be there. Well, okay, we'll see tomorrow, Stuart smiled. On the next morning, Stuart took out a flashlight, handed it to Penelope, and ordered her to follow him. In the kitchen, he lifted the heavy lid of the pantry, carefully descended, and as soon as he reached the ground, he shouted to Penelope to also come down. When they turned on the flashlight, the darkness dissipated, and in the corner, they saw traces of brickwork. After dismantling the bricks, they pulled out a small iron chest. The key turned with a creak in the hole, a click sounded, and Penelope gingerly lifted the lid off the chest. Inside was a small bag on a string. Stuart took it, untied it, and poured the contents into his palm. Penelope brought the flashlight closer and froze in amazement. On Stuart's palm, the sharp edges of real precious stones glistened and sparkled with different colors. Penelope and Stuart stood, admiring the incredible and mesmerizing sight, unable to look away, and everything that was happening seemed like a fairy tale dream to them. Having come to his senses, Stuart chose the biggest ruby from the pile of stones and gave it to Penelope. The girl accepted the gift and began to admire it. You know, I remembered. My grandfather once told me about his youth. He worked in the mines, but I never thought that he hid his findings and kept them for so many years. Stuart took a final look at the exquisite treasure, neatly folded the stones back into the bag, and smiled contentedly. He felt confident again and hoped that everything would be fine for them now, as he could use the inheritance to get the store out of debt, improve the business, and buy himself the most modern prosthesis. Will you marry me? He suddenly asked Penelope. We will sell the stones, leave here, and start a new, happy life. Do you agree? Of course, my love. If you only knew how long I've been waiting for this, she whispered, and hugging Stuart around the neck, buried her face in his chest. Stuart hugged the girl tightly and realized that all the pain and heaviness of the past few months after the accident was finally leaving. Love helped him forget about despair, betrayal, and disappointment, filling his soul with the long-forgotten feeling of incredible, My name is Sarah, a divorced woman in my late 20s. I'm going to share a story that happened about a year ago about my ex-husband's unbelievable betrayal and the astonishing events that followed. I was with John, my ex-husband, since our college days. After graduating and securing jobs, we got married 2 years later. John, who had a sales job at a cosmetics manufacturing company, used to say, "Appearance is everything in sales." And so he put even more effort into maintaining his looks than he did in college. Around the time we got married, his company started doing quite well, so John started investing more in his outfits. He was so particular about his hair that he went to the salon twice a month, just to keep it perfect. I mean, you can't have a sales rep for a cosmetics company looking shabby. So I had to hold back my feelings whenever I thought, isn't he going a bit overboard? Especially when comparing his situation to mine. As for me, I quit my job to become a homemaker after we got married. After about a year, I started thinking about having kids. But John would always respond with, "We don't have enough money. It's just not possible right now," and was reluctant to agree. So, I reluctantly started working part-time to convince him. I juggled two jobs, worked 5 days a week at both a gas station and a grocery store. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally, to the point where I felt I might be busier than John himself. I couldn't even go to a hair salon often. Yet, what kept me going was John's kindness that he expressed occasionally. Once every 3 months or so, there were days when he would make a reservation for the both of us at the hair salon. We spent the whole day together just being out on a date. We would get our hair done in the morning and then go shopping or watch movies. Although there were things I wish John did better, the time spent together on our dates made up for it. Those dates helped ease out our tension and maintain our healthy relationship. However, 2 years after getting married, Megan, a friend from our college days who lived nearby, told me this. "Sarah, did you know there's a rumor going around that John's cheating on you with another woman?" Of course, I, who had no way of knowing such a thing, was shocked. Unlike me, Megan was already a mother of two. She was enjoying her daily meetups with other moms in the park. Among the gossip there, it seemed there was one about John going into a hotel with a young woman every Friday. Sure enough, John was usually late coming home on Fridays, but that was because he had to tally the week's sales results for the weekend. At that time, I completely believed his story. Thinking it must be some mistake, I tried to tell Megan, but she countered. I saw it once too. Megan grabbed my shoulder and persuaded me in a strong tone. "Something's fishy for sure. You have to talk to him about this." That day, I told John about the gossip. Really because Megan pushed me to talk to him, but also because I wanted to be reassured and tell others that it wasn't true. I thought that if I confirmed this with John and he denied it, I could feel at ease. As expected, John refuted my story, saying it was just a rumor. There was a female employee who came from out of state for a meeting. It seemed she would be late returning home, so I took her to the hotel she stayed at. "Don't take strange rumors seriously," he snapped back and denied the rumor. I didn't think he would be this upset for being doubted, so I didn't know how to respond for a second. Then I felt very bad for doubting my husband when he did nothing wrong. I deeply regretted accusing my husband of cheating even for a bit. However, right after that, I witnessed my husband entering a hotel with a woman. The two of them, arm in arm, looked like nothing but lovers. John was wearing the suit he had worn to work that day, and the woman was in a hoodie. It didn't look like something you'd wear to a company-wide meeting. I remembered that they were seen going to the hotel every Friday, so I started to stake out around the hotel in the evenings every Friday, and sure enough, every week, John appeared with this woman. John always had his sunglasses on, and the woman had her hood deep over her eyes, seemingly trying not to be noticed. But it was the figure of my husband whom I saw every day. He wasn't under much disguise, so it was clear that it was my husband. I knew I needed proof, so I took pictures with my phone. I had to do something, so I took the initiative to contact my in-laws and explain the situation. However, the two of them, who have always been sweet on John, their youngest child, brushed off my story as if it were just a rumor. What a nice guy escorting a girl who's on a business trip safely to her hotel. Seeing my father-in-law start to praise John, I showed him the picture of John with this woman. "Please, you two, look at this." The two of them seemed a bit flustered when they saw the pictures, but they quickly composed themselves. A young man with a young woman? It's normal for others to take it that way. The mother-in-law laughed, and the father-in-law nodded in agreement. The fact that it's every week is strange, and no matter how many times I look at the woman's outfit, it doesn't look like she just left the office. Their reaction got on my nerves, so to prove my husband's infidelity, I decided to get some more solid proof. I knew John was careless. He often leaves his phone on the desk with all of his notifications on. Everything pops up on his screen, both the messages and its senders. I'd never thought about going through his notifications until now, but of course, it was different this time. I took a peek at his phone that was left on his desk as usual. Looking forward to our beach trip on Friday night, I was both shocked and dumbfounded. I couldn't believe they were brazen enough to chat about such a thing through texts. I felt like they were treating me like I was stupid, which only intensified my anger. That very night, John told me that he had to go on a trip starting Friday night for his company's gathering. He said it so casually, but I knew it was just a facade. It was amusing to see him trying to hide something so obvious, and I felt a sense of superiority. When I asked where he was going, he responded with the name of a beach resort by the mountains. It seems he's staying at a hotel, which we've been to together before. When I called the hotel, they indeed had a reservation under John's name for Friday night. That Friday, I decided to bring my in-laws to the said hotel. Charles, my nephew-in-law, a vocational school student living with my in-laws, also wanted to come. He must have heard from my in-laws. Charles is the only son of John's eldest brother. He lost his parents in a car accident when he was in elementary school and has since been raised by my in-laws, perhaps due to their close age. Charles was particularly fond of John among many uncles and aunts. Following John's lead, he even started to become interested in fashion and has been saying he wants to be a hairstylist. John seemed to be very happy that Charles liked him. The two of them were more like brothers than uncle and nephew. They called each other by all sorts of nicknames, too. He must have found it hard to believe the unfaithfulness of his beloved young uncle, just like me, a little while ago. He must have wanted concrete proof that things were not what they seemed. The thought of this hurt my heart, but in the end, he couldn't come because he had school. Fateful Friday. I arrived at the hotel a little earlier than the time John and the women's check-in time and waited for them with my skeptical in-laws. He's probably not coming, my father-in-law murmured, relieved when they didn't show up after waiting for a while. However, just as my father-in-law sighed and started to get up from his seat, they arrived. A man in a suit and incongruous sunglasses and a woman whose face was half hidden by the hood of her hoodie arrived. As soon as the two walked through the entrance of the hotel, they kissed without waiting for the automatic door behind them to close. At that moment, the woman's hood fell down, revealing her hidden face. I was stunned by the beauty that had come into clear view. She had cute acorn-like eyes, a small nose pointed up, beautifully upturned lips, and her inner hair beautifully dyed bright red, which was familiar. She was a hairstylist at the hair salon my husband frequented. I had had her shampoo and blow-dry my hair several times. I remember talking to her across the mirror, saying, "I'm going on a date with my husband after this." I was completely taken aback. I had been unknowingly going to the salon where the woman my husband was cheating with worked, excited about my post-haircut date with him. Did she think I was a dumb old woman, oblivious to my husband's infidelity, while she dried my hair? Thinking this, my anger began to boil. I wanted to strike down both John and the woman. I looked at my in-laws. You both understand now, right? John is undoubtedly having an affair. They made faces as if they had bitten into sand and apologized. Never mind that. Could you please cooperate with me? Later at dinner, my in-laws and I sat next to John and the woman. My plan to get back at them was quite simple. We would appear in front of them and confront them in a situation where they couldn't make excuses. I thought that if it became known that he had been unfaithful not only to me, but also to his parents, even John would learn his lesson. Good day. As I greeted him, John, turning to me, widened his eyes so much that the outlines of his pupils were discernible. His lover asked, "What? Who are they?" But John's half-open mouth just flapped without any words coming out. Anger surged to me again towards his mistress, who didn't even recognize me. I retorted in a sharp tone, more like, "Who are you? A colleague from work?" For the first time, his mistress reacted and was taken aback. Seems like she finally recognized me. She tried to get help from John by making eye contact, but John was stunned too. I blurted out, "So it's true that you go to a hotel with some woman. How could you be so bold and lie to me? You were actually cheating on me, and yet you got mad at me for doubting you. As soon as you guys entered here, you two were kissing. We saw it clearly." At this point, anger flared in John's eyes. He glared at me and said in a low voice, "Cheating? What do you mean?" And raised his voice, "So you're telling me it's all my fault? Shut up. You were so busy with your part-time job or whatever and never bothered to dress well for yourself. You always look so shabby, and I can't be going out with someone like you." Spurred by my husband's counterattack, his lover suddenly became more energetic. "By the way, are you his wife? I couldn't even tell at first glance because you look so shabby. Gosh, I even gave you a wonderful haircut at my place. How dare you talk to her like that?" Finally, my father-in-law raised his voice. "John, shut this girl up right now. And John, how dare you talk to your own wife like that? Shut up. That's how you make me the bad guy." Well, that's to be expected. Unlike my older brother and sister, I'm never good enough. You always made me take on extra classes because I was never talented. John, that's not right. Shut up, old hag. John raised his voice again. But my mother-in-law was right. My mother-in-law had always told me John's older brother and sister struggled in school, so we made John attend extra classes and tutoring, so he wouldn't have to struggle like his siblings. We did everything we could to make sure John didn't fall behind in school. He was showered with love, yet his view was skewed. After that, John continued to insult me and his parents, who tried to confront John, loudly calling them old man and old hag. "All of you, you don't understand me and always put me down. That's why I couldn't stand it and went for a girl who understands me. What's wrong with that?" Suddenly, John's phone rang. It was a call from someone. At first, John ignored it, but annoyed by the relentless ringing, he took out his phone to check it. Immediately, I could see the blood draining from John's face. Wondering what was wrong, I peeped at the screen to see a text. And just by looking at the text, I could tell his fury was flooding in like a demon. "How dare you? Because of you, our reputation is ruined. What are you doing and where are you? Come to my office right now." For some reason, John's boss was furious. I had no idea what was going on. John's phone went off again. This time, it seemed to be a call. And John answered in a flustered manner. "Charles, it's not what you think it is. I can explain." He got a call from Charles. From the moment I confronted John, I had called Charles to let him hear everything that went down. Charles requested for me to do so. Charles's voice was loud enough for us to hear. "No, I know just exactly what you did. I heard everything. I can't forgive you for all the rude things you said to your wife and berating my grandpa and grandma. How dare you? Also, Ashley will get a call soon too." At Charles's words, John's mistress shuddered. "Huh? How does Charles know John's mistress? She's getting a call? From whom?" I wondered, but I soon learned why. I'm currently interning at a hair salon for school, and the owner of the salon's right here with me. He's been listening to everything. He said he's even contacted your boss, John. Yes, that's right. Charles is aspiring to be a hairstylist and attends a cosmetology school. The salon where he is interning turned out to be the one John frequents. In retrospect, I just remembered that Charles was the one who introduced the place to John. But why would his manager call John's boss? In the middle of the call with Charles, John's phone went off again. John hurriedly looked at his phone, which he held up to his ear. The call was from his boss, the same one from earlier. "I'm so sorry." The first thing that John said when he put the phone back to his ear was a strained apology. However, the voice on the other end was just as furious as earlier. No apology will make up for this. You having an affair with a worker from a hair salon run by our CEO's older brother. I let you be in charge to handle business with that store, since your nephew happened to be interning there. But how dare you make a fool out of us? Our CEO's older brother said he will no longer buy our cosmetics or our shampoo products ever again. He said he'll spread the word to the people and industry too. I was even more flabbergasted. Who would have thought that the hair salon was a business partner of John's company, and its manager was the CEO's brother? But the most shocking revelation of the day was yet to come. That girl, she's engaged to the son of the CEO's older brother, right? Did you lay a hand on her knowing that? I was dumbfounded. The woman had been cheating with John, even though she was engaged to the son of her manager. To summarize, John had an affair with a girl that worked at the hair salon that Charles had introduced him. The place happened to be owned by the older brother of John's company's CEO. The hair salon was actually an important client for John. And even worse, the girl he cheated with was engaged to her manager's son. It was clear that this would cause trouble in many ways if people found out. The audacity of these people. John's mistress also got a call. Ashley, do you think it's okay to have an affair with your client? You're even engaged to my son. What did you say to his wife? You're fired right here and now. Also, we're done dealing with that company's shampoo and cosmetics. Don't you and your man ever come here again. The frantic behavior of John and Ashley after that was something to behold. Both of them made numerous excuses and apologized over and over again on the phone, but it seemed to no avail. In the end, John turned beet red and Ashley left the hotel sobbing. I heard later that Charles, when he heard about John's affair, immediately suspected it was Ashley. So he consulted with the salon manager, and they both kept an eye on the situation here. After that, I divorced John. At first, he said, I don't need you anyway. But after Ashley told him she had been fired because of him, he turned around and started pleading with me. Don't divorce me. You're all I have, he said. But I cut him off without a second thought. And now, I've become a full-time employee at the grocery store where I worked part-time, and I'm studying to become the manager here. I owe it all to my years of dedication as a part-time worker. I don't need to rely on John's income anymore. By the way, I hear that John's sales performance has deteriorated rapidly since he lost the deal with that beauty salon. The rumors spread at his workplace, so I'm sure it affected John. According to Charles, John quit the company voluntarily. He was either encouraged to resign or felt uncomfortable staying at his workplace. After graduating from his cosmetology school, Charles got a job at that hair salon. Now, I am his regular customer. Although, he being a novice hairstylist cannot yet handle real customers, so he practices on me by cutting my hair. It's practice, so it's free, Charles says, but I feel bad about that, so I pay at least half the actual price. To be honest, Charles occasionally asks me out on dates, but I want to prioritize my work and my own time for now, so I'm a 46-year-old male and my brother's 48. When I was 20, my then girlfriend cheated on me with my brother. I was heartbroken and angry. I told him that he was no longer my brother. Despite my request, my family didn't cut him off. So I told them that I would never again be in the same place as he was. If they wished to invite both, they should invite him, as I'm the one giving the ultimatum. My daughter's getting married in the spring of next year. In our culture, both parents pay for the wedding 50-50. Unexpectedly, my daughter sat me down and told me she would invite my brother and his family. He married my cheating ex. Apparently, she had been seeing them for the last 4 years and had built a relationship behind my back. She even wants her cousin to be a flower girl. I was angry. I told her what my boundaries are. And if my brother's invited, then I will not pay for any part of the wedding. She became angry and told me it's time to let go of the past. I told her it was not her call to make. We argued some more, and she told me I was making her wedding about myself. I told her I would probably not attend, so it would be all about her. She left crying. My ex-wife called me screaming and told me I was a huge idiot, and our daughter was crushed. Then my parents called, and the same thing happened. I told them off, and now I'm ignoring their calls. My girlfriend told me to reconsider and apologize. I will break my relationship with my daughter by not paying and attending. I don't know. I think my boundaries should be respected. Am I the idiot for that? Not the idiot. This is one of those stories where your daughter's decided that she's willing to alienate you for someone that betrayed your trust. It doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago. It only matters that it happened, which means she betrayed your trust. If she wants him there so badly, he can pay the half due. The people around you need a reality check. Ask your daughter if her fiancé cheated on her with her sister tomorrow, moved on with the affair partner, and decided to stay close to him, how she'd feel. It's so easy for everyone to judge you when they're not in your shoes. And in terms of the money, tradition or not, it's yours, and you can do with it as you please. I still wouldn't pay since there's so much secrecy. I bet you'll pay, and your brother will show up regardless. He supports his daughter his whole life and makes it clear his brother's no longer welcome in his life. His daughter betrays his trust and springs this on him while also expecting him to be a checkbook for her wedding. She's a grown woman. She can learn the consequences. It was probably the brother making sure Opie's daughter liked him to get another one in on Opie. I do not like the brother. Here's a very unpopular opinion. I don't understand why your daughter decided to connect with someone who betrayed their father. How much drama would it have been to let sleeping dogs lie? I know many people won't agree with me, but if this causes an irreparable rift between you and your daughter, being right won't give you much comfort. While I'm fully supporting you standing your ground, just remember if you stand here, you will miss out on her potential kids, birthday parties, and other family events because your family will truly cut you off. If you're okay with that, then so be it. It's been 26 years, longer than Opie's daughter has even been alive. I understand being annoyed that his brother's invited, not wanting to talk or take pictures with him, etc. But giving up your relationship with your daughter is cutting off your nose to spite your face. Here's my question, Opie. Your brother stole your girlfriend. Do you want him to steal your daughter too? Your grandchildren? If not, stop being an idiot and suck it up for one day. So I, 25 female, work in a pretty big office in a big city. The floor I work on is specifically for a branch of the company. So there are only a dozen or so people on that floor. I bring my lunch every day because I usually don't have time to get up and get food for myself. One of my favorite foods is strawberries, and I always eat them. About a week ago, a woman I'll call Jane, 47, started working in the room about 7 doors down from me. A couple of days ago, I pulled out my lunch and started munching on my strawberries while trying to type an email. Jane knocks on my door and asks me what I'm doing. She says this in a very high-pitched, angry tone. So I'm taken aback and all I can murmur out is a small, "What?" before she starts yelling at me. She goes on about how I should know she's allergic and that even smelling strawberries can cause her a severe reaction. I cough on my strawberry and rush to put it back in its container. And she gets even angrier that I didn't already know. I apologize and put my food back in my lunchbox. Then I put it in my desk drawer. The next day, I went to my supervisor, I'll call Derek, to talk about this situation and ask if we could maybe put a sign up at the entrance of our office floor that tells us what allergies our coworkers have. That way we can avoid mistakes that happened the day before. He looks at me confused and asks what I'm talking about. I explain what had happened the day before, and he sighed and explained to me that Jane had no proven documentation about her allergy and didn't put any allergies on the employee information sheet when she was employed. I sigh with relief and ask if it's okay for me to bring my strawberries the next day. And he says it's perfectly fine. So the next day I brought my strawberries and Jane goes off on me as I open my lunch and claims I'm trying to kill her. She says this loud enough that all of my other coworkers gather around my door to see what's going on. Jane storms out and about half my coworkers tell me I'm an idiot for doing that to her and walk out with her. The other half sits there and tells me it's fine and that she did the same thing to them but with different foods. Exemple, carrots, beans, avocado, etc. I'm getting a lot of angry emails calling me an idiot and I feel horrible. But some of my coworkers are saying I did nothing wrong. Am I the idiot? Your boss cleared you and stated that she didn't write them down or provide documentation. If she would die from the smell, she'd be dead already upon entering your office. Not the idiot. Enjoy your fruits. Next time she comes in, tell her to take it up with the supervisor or HR. You inquired and were cleared to eat them at the office. She smells strawberries from 7 doors down and then proceeds to walk closer to the smell that could kill her to tell you the smell could kill her. She's a moron, but it seems like she's lying based on all the other food weirdness. If she's done this to other coworkers about other foods, I'm willing to bet she either just doesn't like the smell or she likes the drama and attention. There's no allergy involved. Anytime you need an accommodation at work for your health, you must provide documentation. Ask your supervisor if they can send out an email to everyone saying that any allergies must be registered with the workplace if accommodations are needed. Hopefully that'll stop the emails and hate. Also let them know that this person shouted at you again for just eating your lunch. My husband, 35, and I, 32, are friends with 2 other couples and we've been taking group vacations for a few years now. We're all teachers except for my husband, who's a welder. So we don't take every single vacation together or anything like that. But for 1 week every summer, we go somewhere as a group. It is a great way for us to reconnect and decompress. I've always left my kids with my parents, and the other couples have arranged their own childcare. We got together this last weekend to decide what we were going to do for next summer. We decided that we were going to Florida. Believe it or not, it is cheaper and less crowded in the summer and all of us can deal with the heat. But one of the couples wants to bring their twin child. She loves seashells and has heard all about this place. Okay, not ideal, but we decided it would be fine. Here's the problem. We always split the cost of the rental evenly. It's fair. 3 couples, each of us pays a third. So we found a rental with 1 room with 2 queen beds, so that will still only need 3 rooms. Not acceptable. On their vacation, they want a long time. Okay, we'll find a rental with 4 bedrooms, but it's more expensive. So they'll have to pay more since they get 2 bedrooms. Cue shocked Pikachu's face. But we always split the rental 3 ways. Well, yeah, because 3 isn't 4. Before anyone says anything, we didn't tell them that they had to pay 50% since they got 2 bedrooms. That isn't what we said. We just expected them to pay the difference between a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom rental. Now they're upset with us for burdening them financially because they want to give their daughter an experience. My husband and I don't think we should subsidize them. However, the 3rd couple thinks we should split the bill this one time to keep the peace. Am I the idiot? Now they're upset with us for burdening them financially because they want to give their daughter an experience. I'm sorry, what? If they want to give their daughter an experience, they need to pay. Ask them if they're willing to pay for your kids' trip somewhere because you want to give your kids an experience. Not the idiot. The 3rd couple thinks we should split the bill this time to keep the peace. Nope. Never set a precedent. They'll expect you to adhere to it every time. Stick to your guns. They can stick with 1 room if they want to split it evenly. In fact, please show them the responses. They have a lot of gall to think everyone should subsidize their extra room. But something else I'd be far more worried about. They explicitly said they want a long time and it's their vacation. But when you bring a single child on vacation with adults, that child needs to be entertained. There are no other children around. Who's expected to do that while the parents want alone time? Is this also something they expect to share equally? Prepare yourself for a vacation that is anything but child-free. While you dropped off your children to have time for yourself, you'll be watching another couple's child instead. Before I start, I'd like to say I'm a big girl. No shame in that. I love myself just the way I am. And I've been living by the motto, be you. Everybody else is taken. Mother-in-law, dear husband's mom, always commented about my weight. Since I got pregnant, she started making more comments while low-key shaming me for what I eat. Whenever I visited, she'd give me a smaller plate, portion, cup, even spoons. She always buys me small-size clothes even though I'm in my second trimester and those clothes don't fit. My sister-in-law decided to throw me a baby shower after my husband denied it when my sister offered to throw me one. The whole side of my in-laws' family is invited. However, my mom refused to come after my husband's words to my sister. Another story for later. I got there and mother-in-law was in charge of serving food to the guest. All that was served were cakes and juice. I got hungry from talking and I got up to eat some cake. The second I put my hands on the cake, mother-in-law grabbed my arm and said I'd gained enough weight already and that if I, quote, keep this up, her son would not be happy living with a large walrus. I was shocked. I didn't know how to react, especially since she said this out loud. She looked at me in a sorry, not sorry kind of way. I put the cake down and grabbed my stuff and started walking. Her daughter stopped me saying that I can't leave mid-party and embarrass her like that. I told her to tell her mom to leave if she wanted me to stay, but she went off and said, "Are you crazy? She's my mom. You want me to kick her out in front of everybody?" So I turned around and kept walking. I called mom to come pick me up and went home. Dear husband came home looking furious. He asked me to explain what I did at the baby shower and why. I mentioned what his mom did, and he started ranting about how I messed this up over something so minor. I told him it wasn't minor, in my opinion, since she literally cut me off food and didn't let me eat when I was hungry. He said that his mom meant well and that I needed to get rid of this easily offended mindset immediately before I passed it down to our son. He said that cakes are not essential foods and that this was not a good enough reason to walk out of the baby shower that his mom and sister put a ton of money, time, and effort into. He said I had hours to call and fix things, but I refused. I went to stay with my mom because he wouldn't stop pressuring me to call and apologize for what happened. He kept talking about how angry and let down his mom and sister felt and called me ungrateful and spiteful for doing what I did. Am I overreacting here? Edit, my sister is infertile and has been for years. My husband claimed that she's become obsessed with the baby simply because she bought me stuff for the baby as gifts and wanted to throw me a baby shower. My sister is a great person, and I have no doubt that she only did all that just because of how great she is and will be as an aunt. My husband kept insisting there was something wrong with her, which led to a fight between them, and he called her a possessive witch. My mom kicked him out and my sister cut contact with him. The issue got worse with my brother-in-law, her husband, arguing with my husband, not the idiot. So your own sister wasn't allowed to throw you a baby shower, which then caused your mom not to attend. Instead, your husband allows his sister to throw one where your mother-in-law bullied you. Are he and his family trying to control you, isolate you from your family? Opie needs to be careful because that's exactly how it sounds. Please take cautions, Opie. Your situation with these people sounds extremely toxic and dangerous. Don't let your dear husband manipulate you into isolation from your family, because that's exactly what he's attempting to do. This is not a man you want to raise a child with. Agree. Any man that would allow his mother to verbally abuse and deny his wife food and then gaslight and berate his wife for standing up for herself is a massively abusive idiot. This is divorce territory now. Stay somewhere safe. Better yet, make him leave the house while divorce proceedings happen. If I were you, I would get the heck out. You have excellent self-love. Don't let them take that away from you, and protect your child from those people. Heaven forbid he gets a little chubby as he grows up, because then he'll be made to feel like he's less too. But he won't have built up the thick skin it takes to deal with them as you have. And what it does to him could be much worse. I grew up being called fat by my mother and developed a disorder that I still struggle with today. I'm nearly adult female, would rather live with my dad. But for school reasons, it's just a lot more convenient for everyone for me to live with my mom during the week. So mostly I'm here to humor my dad. My mom did some stuff during the divorce that I think was crappy. So I don't really like her very much now, but I've been trying to just keep things civil until I graduate. She married a guy with 2 kids, tween male, younger tween female, at lightning speed after the divorce. And the whole merging families thing isn't going well. His kids hate her. I feel somewhat neutral about him and wanna be left alone. And the step-siblings and I are okay, but mostly they do their own thing and I do mine. And it's not the happy blended family my mom wanted. And she keeps trying to force it and making it worse. Her husband goes along with her. So basically nobody is happy in that house. I kinda exploded the hornet's nest this last weekend because I lost my cool about something my mom has been pushing for a while about the step family. She insists on calling my stepdad, my dad, and the kids, my siblings, and gets frustrated that I won't call them that. They're not. I have a dad and I didn't grow up with these kids. I'm not gonna pretend. I finally got tired of it. So, when we ran into some of my mom's and stepdad's friends last weekend and he introduced me as his daughter, I said, "I'm not your daughter." My mom tried to laugh it off, but the friends looked uncomfortable. And she got mad at me in the car and told me I needed to get with the program and stop being the jerk about this. I told her that he wasn't my dad. The kids aren't my siblings. And if she didn't get with my program, she could choose not to be my mom the minute I turned 18. Big argument. They tried to take my car keys as punishment. And when I told my dad, since the car was in his name, he called and said that they give him or me the keys immediately, or he'd get the police involved. So my mom has been crying and saying I'm an idiot. Stepdad agrees. My stepbrother said he thought it was the best and I'm right. My grandparents came over and tried to talk me into apologizing and going along with things. My dad says they pushed me too much and got what they earned, but I probably should have just left it alone in the car. I don't think it was wrong, but I don't know if I was an idiot. Not the idiot. You're already trying to be civil with the stepdad and step-siblings. You have a dad involved in your life. And it seems you've clearly expressed that you're uncomfortable calling them dad or your siblings. So they shouldn't be forcing you to call them that or introducing you that way. A selfish woman breaks up her family and tries to make a new one and then acts surprised when not everyone she betrayed is playing along. Too bad. Your mom could have acted less like a selfish, impulsive nitwit and none of you would be in this situation. Plus, one of the stepsibs agreed. The one is old enough to see for sure what's happening. You can't force a blend. It must happen on its own. Is your dad dating or married? Ask your mom if she wants you to replace her with the next person he gets involved with because he wants to make a happy blended family. Is she really okay hearing you call someone else mom because your dad likes sleeping with her? Mom is being a selfish idiot as a stepdad for going